Hey, what's going on, fam? Happy Wednesday.
Happy
What's
Wednesday,
up,
happy
Tim?
Wednesday.
Good
What's
morning.
up? Morning.
So you're here at Get the Bag podcast, episode 4. Wow, we've done
Four.
4 already.
I know.
That's crazy.
I love it. I love
um,
it.
yeah, they're just rolling. So this episode, we're going to talk about how to set your goals for 2022, given naturally that's the first week of the year. Everybody, you know, January is always a month of like resolutions and like, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be more proactive in this and that.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to just share some tips of ours that's worked or just something that we've learned along the way. Kind of maybe even dig into what our own goals are for the year, for the next quarter, and so feel free to tap in with your questions. Post your questions on the comments, and towards the end of our call, we'll make some time to review those and answer them for you. But let's get started, man. Like goals,
Yeah,
I feel
goals.
like I don't know. It's how to start off with this because people set goals. People always start off so motivated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
in January, or it's like there's something about going into January 1st where people are so inspired
Yeah.
to
I
like,
think
you know,
it's all positive. They want to start off the year on a positive note, right? And
right.
a lot
Yeah,
of that has to be with the goals or um, I guess resolutions in some people's mind and starting off the year right.
yeah, absolutely. But at some point people lose steam, right?
Yeah,
Why does
definitely.
that happen? So we're gonna kind of dig a little bit deeper in that,
Mm-hmm.
unfold some things that we've learned. I've started doing some like uh I guess deep digging in myself and like what I can accomplish this year, and some like resources I've read. But why is it that, the 1st of January, we are so inspired, and then by mid year, it's like we lose steam. We even forgot where the paper we left, like our goals are. We're like, oh, where is it? Like, and that's kind of, tailoring into the first tip, which I just recently learned, which is consistent execution.
That's
That's
good. That's awesome.
that was so I started reading this book called and I have it right here, The 12-Week Year.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see here.
Good book.
Highly recommend it. Because I was one going into the end of last year to this year. There's a lot of insights and a lot of I like I mentioned, I was digging in on like, what do I want in life? And I think that's
Right.
something that we should strive for, is like, what's the end goal,
Mm-hmm.
what's our long-term vision, and I think um, our coach Chris Jefferson mentions,
Mm-hmm.
um, have the end goal in sight. What do you want your life to look like? And so I really started thinking like, okay, like, yeah, I want to be retired. I want to retire in my 40s. I want
Mm-hmm.
to do whatever the heck I want to do. I want to live in a beautiful home, like whatever the case may be. So I was thinking like my long term vision. So it always starts with that. And that's one thing the books mentions. But one thing, it's like, yeah, maybe we're great at planning, but are we executing on those plans?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a lot of times we're not, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I fell through on so many of my goals last year because I wasn't taking that consistent action.
Yeah, me too.
I may write it out, but I don't execute on that. And why is that?
And I think
Um,
a lot has to do with you know, what's going on and your focus too. Like, you write down your actions and what you want to do, and then um, your motivation gets kind of distracted, or whether life comes into play, or another idea off subject comes
right,
on and you focus on that. And I think you got to recognize that and get back to consistency, right? And like we've
right,
talked about it many times, consistency is different for different people, right? And,
Right.
if you have a 9 to 5 job, or if you're in your business full time, your consistency is going to be different for the focus that you have for your business, and the time constraints, right? Too. So,
Right. Right. And that's why I think it's really good. And one thing that the book mentions is you need to have an emotional stake to your
mm,
goals. If it's just like goals that maybe somebody else is accomplishing and you're like, oh yeah, I'll take that. Oh, you want to be a millionaire? Yeah, I'll add that to my list. But
right,
there's no emotional stake to it. You got to personalize your goals. So that was really one thing where I was like, huh, like, yeah, you're right. I can't compare my consistency to someone else, but and I can't compare my goals to someone else. Like they may be similar, but there's a different approach to everything. There's a
right.
personal touch to everything. So once you kind of set, okay, this is my emotional stake. This is what I'm striving towards. You have kind of an idea, you have a vision. Now, you plan it out. But, that's where I feel like people misalign
Mm-hmm.
is they'll
Mm-hmm.
plan out their year, right? They'll be like, okay, I want to do this. And then, a week goes by, maybe they were consistent, and then some stuff happens, they stop.
Mm-hmm.
Two
Mm-hmm.
weeks later, oh yeah, let me do it here, they stop. two
Yeah.
months later, they're like, oh yeah, let me do it. That's being inconsistent.
Yeah.
Um, Consistent action is like every day doing something 1% better. Doesn't mean you're going to accomplish everything in once, but you have to take that consistent execution. And that really like hit home with me,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I think that's the fault. That was something that happened to me last year, and I
Yep.
was like, I'm not going to let that happen. So that I think that's a huge part to start off with, is like once you have your vision, plan it out and just execute. Just take action on whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is.
And
And again, emotional stake. Yeah.
no, and that's absolutely right, because I think that's where a lot of people kind of fall off, right? So, um, just, you know, putting that plan together and then being consistent about that plan, right? Whether you
Right.
say it's 30 minutes or 15 minutes or an hour, at least
Right.
you're sticking to that plan, right? And you're being consistent with that. So I think you're spot on with, um, you know, that why people kind of drop off, with that first kind of goal, of theirs, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, for any of you guys out there, and we'll dig. I think we have a few other tips that we'll kind of elaborate a little bit more. But it's also kind of once you have an idea, like you want to set like short-term goals, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like how you something attainable, and like we have the SMART acronym, right? I forget what they stand for now, like blanking, but like it's having measurable goals,
Mm-hmm.
things attainable, relatable. I think if I'm botching this, my bad.
Yeah.
And I think T is like the timeline, right? Because you can't just say I want to be a multimillionaire
Mm-hmm.
and then that's it. Like you have to like dig in, like okay, what is it going to take to do that? So that's also kind of part of the planning involved in executing it. But kind of like moving into the second tip, the kind of like transition over
Yeah.
is the manifestation, right? So like you kind of have your vision, right? You've kind of planned it
Mm-hmm.
out, you're executing it, you should be, is manifestation. What are your thoughts on that, Tim, and like putting it out there,
Yeah, you got
writing it
to.
down, whatever.
I think, I heard somewhere where if you don't write it down, it's just a thought, right? It's not gonna happen, right? So, I know people think about things, you know, a lot throughout the day, but until kind of they write it down and put it out there, then, you know, it's not gonna manifest, right? So,
Right.
that's why a lot of, you know, successful people, write out their ideas or their plan or business or what they want to do, whether it's
Right.
on, computer or, pen and paper. And so I think that's a big part of, at least getting that first step is to write it down and then kind of build out a plan from there, right? And
Right.
I think when I got started in real estate, it was a situation where, well, what did I want to do? Um, I
Right.
wanted to do real estate investing, and I didn't know how to do it. So that's when I went into the research of that and, YouTube University and all of that. But even before that, when I had another business, it was like, writing down, the business plan or the plan going forward or how we're going to achieve this, right? Creating a product that
Right.
doesn't exist, right? So
Right.
um, definitely putting it out there and then writing it down makes the difference in the world because it feels like it's something you have to do. It's like a to-do list, right?
Right. Yep. And that's kind of going into our third, but we'll hold off on that on like
Right,
keeping
right.
track of that. But I think you're spot on. Like you have to put it out there. Like what I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Um, but I think what something I really want to dig into is like the mentality, like going back to
Mm,
that. It really
mm-hmm,
starts with your mentality and like thinking it first before
mm-hmm.
you even write it down, and going back to like what your vision is. So funny. I was like, I think my wife is watching, but I was talking to my wife the other day, and I was probably
Hey, shout
bugging
out to
her.
the wifey. There you go.
Shout out to the wifey. But I was telling because I'm like, once I like start reading something, it's like it excites me, and I just want to talk about it. So I
Mm-hmm,
was like, babe, like, and dig into like physiology, and like how the brain works and like how it relates to goals. And so I found that it really does start with mentality. It starts here. Your amygdala is in your brain,
mm-hmm,
controls like the risk and danger. It
mm,
triggers risk. So if like you're in you're in danger, or if like when you kind of know you're like this is sketch, like that's where your amygdala kicks in. And
mm.
it triggers as well when you because I do also believe your goals should be out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Like
I
sometimes
agree.
people set themselves short. So when you think like in the future and you're like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, your amygdala is literally triggering, like, don't do that. That's not like you tripping. Like, no,
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm.
stop. It's like putting up all these signals.
Right.
So you literally, your brain is like intuitively like telling you like, no, this is risky. This is dangerous. And so that's that voice that in our head that's like, no, don't do it.
Interesting.
It's too risky. I want to start a business. No, you should stick to your 9 to 5. It's safe,
Mm-hmm,
right? And then we have our prefrontal cortex,
mm-hmm.
which kind of
Oh, we're
counterbalances
going
with your
scientific
amygdala.
now. We're going next
I told
level.
you, man.
I love it.
I was telling you before this. It's the opposite. It's like if you when you it triggers when you imagine something, when like something that just makes you happy, or if like
Mm-hmm.
when you envision your future, it triggers it. And so then it counterbalances with your amygdala. It's telling the prefrontal cortex basically telling the amygdala like shut down, like you tripping.
Mm-hmm.
No, I got this. And so we think like, okay, once we reach adulthood, like we don't like our brain doesn't develop. It most
Mm-hmm.
definitely does. It's all controlled through our thoughts.
Right.
So if we override the amygdala's signals with more positive thoughts, we're literally redeveloping our brain to think differently.
Mm.
So instead of like when we throw stuff out like, I want to be a multi-billionaire, I want to develop this many projects, I want to build communities, and this is how I'm going to do it. Instead of the amygdala triggering, your prefrontal cortex overrides that and is
Mm.
like, you're able to focus on that and achieve it. And I
That's
was
dope.
so blown away by that. That's like where it's like the physiology standpoint, where it's like
Sure.
literally starts with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have it set in your mind, just put it out there, share it with the world, post it on IG,
Mm-hmm.
write it down, say it out loud, talk to yourself and saying it. But it starts with you first, and it starts on developing your mindset. And that's why, like, after a certain period, people that maybe you hadn't seen in a while may be like, you're different. You've
Yeah.
changed. You
Yeah.
can really be like, I have.
Right.
Like, you think different. Like, yeah, my brain has developed where it's like I'm on a whole other level.
Mhm.
And so I really was like, wow, I really need to, like, we don't think like that deep, of course, but it's like sometimes you need to have that knowledge and be like, no, my thoughts are that what you think is really important and really is gonna
Right. Right.
um, be the decision maker and like what you know what your life turns out to be.
Mhm.
So guys, just think, if anything, think about what your goals are, and like reach out of your comfort zone. Like tell yourself whatever the case may be. I want to work with Grant Cardone or something crazy. Like just
Yeah,
say it. Like,
exactly. And you never know what's
um,
going to happen, right? And that's
no,
that's the crazy thing. That's the crazy thing. And
right,
you explaining kind of the science behind that, and these are things that can happen on an everyday basis, and they happen fast, but you have to be aware, and you have to um, you know kind of manifest that, and then just say it what you want, and kind of your goal and what you want to achieve, even though it might be out there. At least
right.
you're, like you're saying, you're reprogramming your brain to
Yeah,
believe that
it's
you can do it.
crazy.
Yeah.
Our body is like insane. What it does. The brain is like it's crazy. I was blown away. Um, but I think another kind of part as far as manifestation and sharing your goals, and one thing I think we talked about offline, which was something I was dealing with, is I was too scared to post my goals because I was
Mm,
like, well, what if I fail? What if I don't even reach them? They're gonna laugh at me
right.
and say, be like, haha, I told you so. I knew that goal was crazy.
Right.
And maybe that's all in my head too. That's that scarcity mindset that we talked about with Jeff last week. But like, that was the reason why I didn't share my goals, or I didn't like put it out there, because I was like, well, this is a little outside the box, and like I don't want people to come back, and it's also thinking
Mhm.
like, who cares what people think, really?
Mhm.
But it
Mhm.
was like that mindset. I was convincing myself not to, that I couldn't do it by,
Yeah.
saying like using other people as an excuse. But I think that's also a big part of why people don't share their goals either, because they're like, yeah, this isn't me. Like,
Exactly.
people wouldn't even think I'd achieve that. So why even share it? I'm not gonna reach it anyways. And that's it.
Mhm.
That scarcity mindset. I don't know if you've ever dealt with that before, but that was definitely a reason why I previously didn't manifest or like speak out about my goals.
No, I think that issue hits, I think, everybody too, because one, if they might think it, but they don't write it down. And then finally, when they write it down, then they're like, oh, I don't want to share it with anybody. I just want to kind of just, share it with myself. You know, um, and it's okay to put it out there, and it's okay to um, not be afraid to show, right? And then going
Right.
back, this goes back to our next, topic too. But at the same time, it's not like a failure. It's just, what have you learned to try to get to that point? And so, there, hopefully, sometimes when your goals are micro, a micro goal that has a time limit on it. Usually there
Hmm.
isn't a time limit on, more of a long-term goal. Some might achieve it earlier, some might achieve it later, but you're never going to know if you don't kind of write it down and put it out there. Um, and even if it's to the public, right? And I think a lot of people get discouraged because they think about, like you said, they think about what other people are going to think about that.
Right. And ultimately, like, they don't care. I mean, there may be those few that are like,
Yeah.
yes, they didn't reach it, and whatever. Hate is gonna hate. So it's, I mean, what do you get? You can't control that. I mean, I've kind of learned
Yeah.
that's like anybody that, I'm in control of everything. So who cares what people think?
Right.
Um, I'm just gonna do me. If I don't reach it, I know at least like I did my best, and I know I progressed.
Hmm.
So I think that's a key thing, when we talk about sharing our goals together and like really stepping outside of our comfort zone.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think you know, it's okay to like set it up to an unreachable goal, but at least you're halfway, maybe you got halfway to it, whereas if you didn't set it, maybe you would have
Mm-hmm.
never gotten anywhere close to it. So um I think that's a
Yeah.
manifestations. Yeah, we can go on about that. I think there's just so
Yeah.
much
It
to
it
play with that.
is. I think the other thing is that people are comfortable just thinking it, right? Oh, I can, I'm just gonna think this, and that's what I want to do. But if they, kind of take the next step and kind of put it out there, that's the uncomfortable part, right?
Mm,
And
right,
and that's when kind of maybe self-doubt or what other people are gonna think, like you were saying, um,
right.
comes into play. So, um, and what we're saying is just, you know, you shouldn't care what other people think. It's just something that you have a goal that you want to actually achieve, whatever it is, if it's business, personal, whatever the case may be, it's something that you hold personal and that you want to actually achieve, then just go ahead and, kind of put it out there. That's all we're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it kind of goes back to that emotional stake. Like if it's not personal, if the goal isn't personal, you're not going to be motivated to do it. You
Yeah.
have to add a personal thing. Like I think we talked about last week, like Eric Bryant, shout out to him again.
Hmm.
He paid off like what, a year's worth of mortgage payments
Yeah.
for his
Yeah.
parents.
That's
Like
amazing.
that's a personal goal. When maybe he was like, I'm gonna help my parents do this. Like maybe he didn't know what exactly, but
Hmm.
like you add a personal touch to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
a specific where that emotional stake to make it like personal.
Hmm.
So like once you reach it, you're like you have something that you're striving for. So I think it's really important when you're setting your goals to really dig deep in like what's best for you,
Right.
and what ultimately will make you happy. So yeah, I love all this. I didn't
I
realize
know.
like how um, um, just how much I was like really dedicated to like goals or
Hmm.
I don't know. I just this past couple weeks I've just done like a ton of reflection, and really like how I focus on my goals because I think it's really important to audit yourself,
Yeah.
because I took
Very
a look.
true.
I'm like, okay, why did I don't like to use fail, but like, okay, how why didn't I accomplish this?
Hmm.
And like looking back and like, okay, what can I do different so that I'm not in the same place I was last year? Because it's all progression. Um, so yeah, I've done a ton of reflection. I'm sure you have too. And why we feel so like I feel like 2022 is like it's personal in a way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because last year was just just building blocks, and I really feel 2022, and I've seen this everywhere too, is like the year of execution.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
Right. Right. And it's I don't know, I think now that we've kind of done our business for a while, it's I think we're even more kind of motivated to bring it to another level, right? And that's when you get more focused on what you want to achieve with setting these goals or
right.
putting it on paper. Excuse me. And so I I think that's why we brought up this topic because it's so important to actually, you know, set these kind of goals that you have for yourself in whatever business you are in. This to allow
Hmm.
you to set a benchmark on how you're going to achieve that, or when you're going to achieve that, or what mistakes that you made to try to achieve that, right? And just learn from that as well,
Right.
and then check off the ones that you actually achieve throughout the year for that. And that
Yeah.
kind of segues to the our next
Right. I was gonna say,
topic.
I'm like, oh. alley oop to me.
There you
Um,
go.
so I think so. Our third tip is checking in with on your goals, and we'll dig deep on like how to do that. Again, referring back to the 12-week year that I've been reading. Again, I mentioned I was like doing a ton of reflection. I was like, hey, what can I do to accomplish my goals? Like what exactly can I do? So I did the most. I ordered this book. I also ordered the Intentional I can't even speak, Journal by
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Turner. He's the he's a guy in the Bigger Pockets podcast.
Yeah.
He's the one who kind of developed the Burr strategy.
Nice.
So he put together this intentional journal, which is like a 90-day goal setting. And so you focus on three goals, because that's also another thing is like, we have our high level goals, which we should have our
Mm-hmm.
vision, but sometimes it's like we write down 10 goals, but it's like, how do you know which ones to focus on first? So sometimes you
True.
have to dwindle it down to a small percentage of goals. So, you focus on three, and then the three from there, you kind of dissect it. So you're like, okay, this is my weekly objective. This is my daily goals. Um, and then just like write things down. So one of my goals is like hiring a VA, because I
Mm-hmm.
had to let mine go a couple weeks ago. So I was like,
Right.
okay, how am I going to do that? All right, contact a vendor or somebody that I know that has a VA service. Okay, and from there, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to work on my process, on my documentation, get that all straightened out, and what I learned from my previous VA.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, and so you break it up into weekly and then daily goals too. So I'm able to time block, also like write my time block, right? Like, okay, what's the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing I have to do today? That's all set up in the pages. And so what we found, and also through reading this book, is like sometimes we put, I think they call it annualized thinking. It's something like you start January 1st and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I have a whole year to accomplish all these goals. Um, but a year, like, it's a long time. So you sometimes when you think like you have hella time, you kind
Mm-hmm.
of like you back off a little bit, or you're like, oh, I have time to do that. I'm just gonna do this, and it's not, you're not even focused on those
Yeah.
goals.
And you got a month
um
left till the year's up. You're like, oh, dang.
right, but it's always that time when, like, I used to be a procrastinator. Maybe I still am, like for work stuff or whatever, where it's
Right.
like I wait a couple days before, and then it's like bam, I just get it done, because we dedicate time to focus on that. And why can't we
Mm-hmm.
do that with our goals? If we really focused in on like a small time period, we should be able to do that. We can check in on our goals. We can reevaluate. If we need a pivot, we can pivot. Don't wait till the end of the year to check in on your goals, because otherwise you're going to, you know, you're you're going to lose sight of the focus of your goals. So
Mm-hmm.
the way they lay it out is like every 12 weeks is a year. So treat the 90 days or 12 weeks like January to January,
Mm.
and then after, at the end of 12 weeks, it starts again. It's a new year, basically.
Right.
Because again, like there's something in our minds of like, okay, it's a new year, it's a new brand new start.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even look
Mm-hmm.
at it as like quarterly Q1, because that's part of a year. Look at it as like, okay, 12 weeks, this is what I'm going to accomplish. You write that down at the end, and then you still follow the SMART guidelines. You have deadlines, timelines, goals from there, but you have to execute on these things.
Mm.
And if you're not checking in on those goals, you're not you're not holding yourself accountable to
True.
your personal stake, your emotional stake. So there's a lot of that, but checking in on your goals is really important, and that's something I didn't do consistently last
Mm-hmm.
year, and why
Yeah,
I
I
feel
didn't either.
I didn't execute on that.
Yeah, I think that's really detailed on the journal, and it kind of holds you accountable too, because it kind of lays out, your week or your days as well, as long
Hmm.
and progressing to your 12-week goal, right? Or your quarterly goal or your yearly goal, right? So you get
Right.
you get hyper focused on that. But I think a lot of people like yourself and myself, um, don't go back and check that, right? Or don't go back until the following year, right? You're like, oh yeah, I had these goals, and then I think everybody kind of falls into that category. But it is a situation where you do have to be very, I guess, disciplined to go back and say, okay, well, why didn't I do X, Y, and Z, right? Even, a week ago or,
Right.
a quarter ago, right? And why didn't I achieve more deals, or why didn't I achieve, more sales, or whatever the case may be. And
Right.
so, because it's always test and measure, I mean, we do that on a daily basis on our business, right? We should also do that with our goals that we have set as well. So,
Right. Yeah, and sometimes we tie those together too, like business and personal,
yeah,
but each
yeah.
one of those are maybe separate journeys too. Like my one of my third goals is to improve my credit score. My credit score is pretty
Mm,
good. Actually, as
hmm.
it stands, I got pre-qualified to buy a house, and we're gonna hope to house hack somewhere, hopefully
I
this
love
year.
that. I love that.
Um, but but I was like, I'm thinking the future. I'm like, I'm trying to get a business credit card. I want to I want to get
Hmm.
my credit score just ready for whatever.
Right.
I know people buying houses with credit cards, not in Cali, unless you
No,
got max max limit.
I know,
But
right? In the
but
Midwest,
like
like
that's one of those.
15,000.
I know. I know people buy it for yeah, like 5,000 in Detroit and stuff. But
It's crazy.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy what you can do. But like credit especially here is like is everything. So if I can build that up by the time where it's like, all right, we're gonna pull the trigger, we found the perfect house to house hack,
Hmm.
then like I want to have a credit score that's ready to go.
Yeah.
So like for me it was a mixture, like that is kind of like personal and business goals.
Hmm.
um but again, it's like I have a each goal has their own objective. And what I really like about that journal is like you have a weekly review to be like, okay, like how did the week go? Like what could you have done better? It's a lot of reflection. And then also with the daily is like in the evening you can check, okay, did you work on your most important thing that you mentioned earlier? And
Hmm.
you can be like, okay, well, what went wrong? What went right? What was great about your day? You can write that down, and that kind of again puts your mindset in like, okay, this is what I need to work on tomorrow, and then the same on the weekly basis. All right, this is what I need to work on next week. So you're kind of like working at them in like parallel, and then you have like a monthly
Hmm.
review to check everything. So you should constantly be checking in um, on your goals that way, and like, okay, this is my daily to-do list, this is my weekly review, and like, okay, at the month's end, okay, this is how I did in general. And then at the end of your 12 weeks or 90 days, you can reflect back like, okay, how did I do as a whole? And then
Right.
like adjust, pivot from there. um it's really like kind of going back to execution. People can write down whatever,
Hmm.
like and be like, oh, I have this pretty planner. But if you're not taking action or executing, like you might as well just stop, throw it away, throw your plans away if you're not, if you're
Exactly.
not gonna
Right.
like
I know.
check in or work on them.
I
It's
know.
hard though. It's hard to
It is.
be disciplined, like you said.
No, I totally agree. I think what my question too is, where do you think someone should start if they are not sure? Let's say they want to get into a certain profession and that's one of their goals. And how would they go about, I guess, writing goals for that, because we we kind of got into a business where we kind of already knew what we were going to do when we did the research, right? And then, writing down the goal, okay, that was one of my goals was to get into real estate, right? I just didn't know
Right.
how I was going to do that, right? So another is education, right? So I guess I broke it down that way. What are some of your suggestions on if someone's get into a certain field and how they go about writing, their goals for that because they're not in the weeds like we are with, the weekly and then the monthly and then quarterly and yearly. So.
Right. I guess if anything, I would start with like what do you want your life to look like? Your
Mm,
envision what your end goal is. I think just it I think what's really great. If you have that, that's like a staple.
mm,
You know, if your goal is like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a physical therapist or something. That's my end goal. That's kind of like how I want to live, in a mansion, or I don't know, whatever the case may be. Have your end goal in sight, envision what it is. Because if you even don't know where you want to begin, like maybe doing some research on that, or like maybe that's your first goal. Research what I want to do. Um, and then kind of like look into like do your research instead of timeline, because you can be like, okay,
right.
research 6 months later,
I know.
like you the sponge good old SpongeBob,
I know,
and
right?
it's like you haven't got anything. So setting, I think that's why timelines is really important. Like, okay, at the
Yeah.
end of this week, I'm going to figure out what profession I want to get into. For me, it was interesting because you did do some research. For me, it's all like just instincts. Like I just went for it because something just told me.
Hmm.
My gut just told me like this is somewhere I need to be. I call it guts. What is it? Guts matter. Because
Hmm.
like kind of going back, like your gut and your brain kind of are connected.
Right.
So when you say trust your gut, that's what it is. So I
Very
trusted
true.
my gut. I didn't do as much research. I did maybe like I did the whole podcast thing. So I guess that
Hmm.
was my research, was listening into podcasts and knowing like real estate was the way. I just didn't know what avenue. I
Yeah.
was hearing Burr, I was hearing like fix and flips, but wholesaling, that was so new and it
Hmm.
seemed so easy.
Yeah.
And the way Chris breaks it down was so simple. Like that was enough for me to
Right.
know. Um, so I really wish going back now, like had I known that like how to structure my goals, I probably would have done things a little bit different. I was just kind of willy nilly,
Yeah. Me
as all
too.
of us are, because we're just figuring it out. So kind of going back to your point is like build your end goal and like what it is you want to do, set your timelines, and go from there. Things are going to change, so that's why it's really important to check in on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. Like check in with where you're at. If you were to check in like every week and you're like, I was supposed to do that, I didn't do it. You have
Right.
to set
Right.
that up again. So that's where I was. Don't complicate it. I think you don't have to read all these books. I think um, we read books like once we kind of come to a realization like, okay, this is what I want to focus on, and then it's like we bring on
Hmm.
the resource. But don't get analysis paralysis. Like just
Exactly.
kind of use your end goal as your staple, as your foundation, in
Yeah.
whatever goals you set.
Yeah. And my research was like, what aspect of real estate I was going to get in because there's so many different ways to get into real estate. And so that was more the research because I found a lot of things and found a lot of courses, but I just didn't know which one was going to be more beneficial for me and was maybe the easiest way to get a kind of a return, I guess. Um, Pretty quickly. And wholesaling was that avenue for me. And I like you and other people in the U is that we all resonated with Chris, right? In some way, in some fashion. So you also another goal could be just finding someone that is a mentor or a coach that you can get into and kind of fast track your education on that
Right.
direction too. So I think because what I think we talked about this yesterday was is that people may haven't found their path or right, and we knew that we were going to get into real estate, so and then we found wholesaling, but then we
Mhm.
um, got into a program with Chris and Chris Jefferson, and he kind
Mhm.
of laid the blueprint or the map down, right, on exactly how
Right.
to achieve it, right? And but it was up to us to kind of navigate that map to make it our own, right? And try to achieve a certain goal within the real estate industry to actually get a deal or get several deals or level up because the ultimate goal is to, you know, um, be able to provide value. One, two is to get that bag, right? So,
All right.
so because that's a lot of it's the motivation part, right? So I think that's, and some people might have the wrong map, like we had talked about too,
Mm,
right? They
right.
might follow a different path and might have a different map, but, um, and some people may not know that. They might have to, crumple that map up. Like I'm dating myself, right? Navigation system, right? So they might have a different
GPS.
address. Yeah, GPS, different address, but the address is the wrong address, right? So,
Right. I think it's important, like everyone has their own journey and why you shouldn't compare. Some may take a little bit longer than others because maybe others, like you said, figure it out much sooner. They were able to navigate the map much quicker, while others, stuff happens along the way, along your journey. But I think it's important to just focus on your journey and identify like what, again, going back to that angle, what is it going to take for me to reach that angle? Do I need a coach, like you said, mentorship? Can I afford that? And what steps do I need to take? So I think easily, again, going back, we compare our journeys with each other, and there's nothing wrong with sharing it, but I can't compare my journey to
yeah,
yours because
yeah,
we're different.
absolutely.
Like maybe the end result is similar, but it's going to be different. Maybe the people that you keep maybe hold you down a little bit, and I'm able
Mm-hmm.
to get there sooner, or vice versa. So I think it's like focus on what your journey is and navigating that map, using the resources you have, and kind of going back to like your support system too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like we all know, like people, at this point we should know like who's good for us, who isn't, and
Yeah.
what does it take, to get to, again, our end goal in sight.
Mm-hmm. And I think having your goals and then how you're going to achieve that, and then the people that surround you, how they may help you kind of achieve those goals too, because it could be collaboration, it could be sharing knowledge with people, or taking another course to be more specific in your specific industry. So it's definitely different ways and different paths, like you were saying, that you could take
Yeah.
to achieve these goals. But it really goes back to execution and taking action too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also kind of going back to the annualized thinking is our goals are going to change. And that's
Hmm.
why like focusing on like just writing down your yearly goals, it's fine, but it may not be the same from January 1st. So that's why it's like you may check in 12 weeks later and be like, what was I thinking? Like, no, I'm not gonna reach my end goal sooner by focusing on these things. Let me switch it up and put my focus on these other three things, maybe.
Hmm.
Um, Again, annualized thinking, 1 year is way too long for things not to happen. I mean, that's just life. Things happen all the
Right.
time.
Right.
Maybe after 12 weeks, your goal is your health because something happened, or taking care of a family member because something happened.
Hmm.
So things shift all the time, and you have to gravitate towards that. So it's not fair to yourself to just write down your yearly goals and then
Hmm.
put them away and
Right.
like have it stuck in your head. You have to. I think that's just life in general, is like being adaptive, and pivoting, because things happen all the time. Things shift in your business. Maybe like,
Hmm.
we close 300K in a month from wholesaling.
Right.
Um, we're going to be like, wait a minute, like what did we do to do that?
Hmm.
Let me shift my goals to focus more on that instead, because I found the jackpot.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
300K in wholesaling fees sounds more like Cali deals.
Cali deals,
So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. So it's like you have to be consistent in uh, having that knowledge of like when it's time to pivot, and that's why I think 12 weeks is just enough time to try out your goals and see what you accomplished, and then based off your results, things may change. So you're not
Hmm.
thinking on old thinking in a
Yeah.
sense. If that
No,
makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. And then also it holds you accountable too, right? I think you had mentioned that, because
Right.
you're actively writing it down, actively looking back on it, and then you're pivoting as you're kind of going to, because you're seeing the results, um, within that time frame, right? And like you said that 12 weeks is a good time of measuring. And then also, if you see some success and say, okay, now I need to pivot to concentrate on that, and then duplicate that success, for the next 12 months or so.
Yeah, definitely. But it always goes back to your end goal in sight. So
Yep.
one other book I've started reading too is the 10x rules. I think that's what it's called,
Hmm.
from Grant Cardone.
Yep.
Um, and that also, he also talks about your goals, how you set your goals is like, go out there, set your goals high. If you didn't achieve them, like, it didn't happen, but at least you had something to strive for.
Hmm.
And one thing that he was doing, this was back like when he was like 20, in his mid 20s, and he talks about like how, he learned he didn't really have that 10x, which just means like just doing the 10 times more effort than what
Hmm.
somebody else would do.
Right.
Um,
And that could be
so one
anything,
thing he
right?
was saying, right, it can be anything. It can be your professional goals, it can be life. You should go 10x on everything. I'm going to
Hmm.
be the best wife.
Hmm.
Um, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm a 10x. I'm going to put in more effort than, a normal person, or
Right.
whatever.
Right. Right.
But one thing that he did, is he would write out, every day, in the morning and the evening, his basically his goals as if he accomplished it. So
Mm.
one of his goals was like, I want to be on television. I own over 1,000 units that cash flow me 10%. I want to close this many deals, like whatever the case may be. But it wasn't just professional; it was also personal. I
Hmm.
I want to be the best husband to my
Hmm.
wife. I still love my wife more and more every day. I love my children, and so he would write it as if he already accomplished it. And
Right.
that kind of goes back to your mindset too, and like writing
Sure.
things down, manifestation. So I just started doing that. So I have like a little thing of like where I've been writing it. Sometimes I think for the most part I've been pretty consistent with it. So this is like my morning stuff because it's right next to my desk. So I just like write stuff down where I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, our podcast is top three.
Yeah.
I live in a beautiful home in the California hills,
Yeah. These are
like
my
stuff like that. So
daily.
yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, so it's the same thing. It's like I write down, you know, um, I kind of plan it out too. Like, I have things that I try to do at really late at night. I'll write stuff down and then plan it out for the week or month or so. But I do need to get one of those journals that you're talking about too, as well. So,
Yeah,
because it
maybe
gets
I'll
more, a little
post
bit
the
detailed.
link
That
in
would be
the
great.
YouTube description.
Yeah.
And I can just send it over to you. But man, it's great. I think it was like Mitt on Instagram. I only know him as Mitt. I don't know like his real name, Mitt
Hey,
two one
shout out to
five or
Mint.
something.
Yeah, shout out to
Yeah,
Mint.
that's all I know. Yeah, he posted that he actually posted these two things like right before New Year's. He was like, "Hey, like you want to take your goals to the next level? Here, purchase these things." And I went ahead and purchased it because that's exact. I was looking for something to inspire me. And another thing I also did is I still need to do it. Is I bought materials for a vision board because I
Mm.
that's also part of manifestation,
Hmm.
is like visually seeing it. So once I'm done with my vision board, I'm going to post it somewhere up
Hmm.
here in my office. So it's a constant reminder of like, um, because I've seen The Secret. I know people like, or,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
documentary on The Secret, people have read The Secret, which also kind of deals with like manifestation and like mindset. Um,
Exactly.
so I'm like, there's like somebody there who was like, yeah, I was moving, and then I found my vision board, and it was like I was living in the home that I cut out like
Hmm. Hmm.
years ago, just like crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's like not necessarily whatever car I cut out I'm gonna have, but like it's not the point. The point is like this is where I see myself, and it also goes towards like your end goal and like your vision and how you want your life to be in the future. So those are kind of things where it's like um, I just kind of want to set the tone for the year, and just kind of having those things handy where I can like constantly remind myself,
Mm-hmm.
remind others. And now I'm like, that's all I talk about to people is like my goals.
Mm-hmm.
So they may be sick of it, but whatever.
No, but you're also training, like you're saying, you're training your brain, right, to think differently too.
My
And
prefrontal cortex,
there you go,
PFC or
prefrontal.
whatever it's called.
That's right. So I think
Right,
that's important because that, whatever it's the journal, whatever it's your, vision board or whatever, you're putting it out on social media. These are all things that are, whether you look on the wall or, look on your journal or look online, it's always there, right? And it's always something
right,
that you're trying to achieve and you're always trying to strive for. So, down to your core of your ultimate goal, but these are kind of the steps on how you're going to get there. But you always have the eyes on the prize type of thing. Like the sports analogy. Every
right,
year, the teams are striving to win the Super Bowl, right? Whether in football, right,
right,
or win the national championship, whatever the case may be. They all have that ultimate goal. Is just how are they going to get there, right? What
right,
players are they going to put in place? What plays are they going to put in place? If someone gets hurt, they're going to have to shift, um, pivot or whatever the case may be. So you have that ultimate goal, but there's along the way there's going to be some changes, and you just have to assess what's working and what's not, and going back to, like we said, execution, putting it down, checking in on those. Those are going to be very successful tools for
right.
you to actually achieve what you want to achieve. So,
Yeah. And one thing I've also learned from Grant Cardone's book is he says if something makes you scared, if like a goal or like a task makes you scared, that means you're exactly where you need to be. Sometimes it's like we're scared to make that call if we're talking about like wholesaling or cold
hmm
calling. Uh, that fear is exactly how you're supposed to feel, and is your gut, your body telling you I need to do this.
hmm
So one of his tips was like just do it, like don't think, just grab your headphones and click, and like batch dialer where it's like, all right, make yourself available, click yes,
right,
like just
exactly.
do it. It's just we always talk ourselves out like right in the moment, where it's like, all right, I'm here, I'm sitting at my desk, I have my headphones, I'm looking at my headphones, but sometimes we just come up with a reason like, oh, I have to do this. I'm gonna step out for a bit. Like
Yeah.
just do it. Like just and I think Eos talks about like people that want to maybe work out or lose weight, like be prepared, like have your clothes next to your bed so that
hmm
when you see it, you're like, all right, it's go time, it's time to get in the gym. So just do it, like just
Yeah.
whatever chance, just take action on it, don't even
Yeah.
think, because we
Hey,
we overthink it and talk ourselves out of it.
I say Nike was never wrong. Their slogan is just
Right,
Nike was never wrong.
that's right,
I
that's
mean,
right. Shoe Dog is a great book, by the way.
oh yeah, I love that book.
Yeah, I heard it on Audible, and it was
hmm
so good to me. I was so inspired that I had to go buy the physical book. So it just
Yeah.
kind of had it and I could highlight it, but that's a great book. Um, but yeah, Tim, as we kind of close it, I think we had like one question, but what's kind of like your goals for, I mean, you can talk about your end vision, but what's something you're focusing on in the next, couple weeks?
Um, in the next couple of weeks is that, I have a couple multifamily deals that I'm looking at right now. I've gotten some referrals on some multifamily deals. So the next few weeks, I'll be analyzing those deals, and then also because one of my goals is to try to owner or even be a part owner if I need to partner up with another investor to own
Mm-hmm.
a multifamily or an apartment kind of a deal. So um, as I started to think previously of last year, like right before last year, is like I wanted to do more of this. So me putting that as a goal of mine, kind of like the first part of the year, I started getting inbound, like people saying, "Hey, I got a property here or so for multifamily." So they're starting to trickle in a little bit, which is great because it's the start of the year. Everybody's trying to get back on in the groove after the holidays. So,
Mm-hmm.
just getting out of that holiday kind of funk, I guess you would say, just,
Right.
shake off that, just the relaxing and the chill mode, and then hitting grind. So basically it's just analyzing those deals, like you're saying, trying to onboard another VA to where because I think we both kind of let our VAs kind of go and focus on getting better VAs and someone that can actually close the deals. And then another goal
Mm-hmm.
of mine is just get back on the phones too, um,
Mm-hmm.
and just make sure I make time for that. And that's another
Right.
because you know, I'm not too shabby on the phone, so and I know when I get on the
Oh, I
phones, I
know.
know that so
PJ
it's just
Tim.
so I'm just trying to do focus on that and then um, time block that, right? Whether it's, maybe in the morning or an afternoon or in the evening here on the West Coast, I can still make some
Mm-hmm.
calls. I still try to block out some time to do that. And it feels good to be back on the phones too and doing that.
Yeah.
I have other people, calling for me, but at the same time, I think I still need to uh, never lose that. I think coach even said he had to, close to the end of the year, he
Get
had
back on the
to
phones.
get back on the phones, right? So I think you're still, or you're always honing your craft, and then always
Mm-hmm.
something new might come up too that you're going to learn from and you're going to have to pivot from too. So, I think
Right.
we're pivoting right now and we're trying to learn more about what's happening with prop stream and stuff like that. So, you know,
Right.
so so it's something that we have to overcome as real estate investors on how we're going to maybe comp deals and stuff like that. So is it, building relationships with realtors so we can actually get MLS information or, so it's just,
Mm-hmm.
things that are going to happen throughout the year. So, the next few weeks is just focusing on the deals that are coming in and then getting back on the phones. Number two, and then continue with my networking, right? So, and because I want to be able to build more of a network, at least here in Los Angeles too, because
Right.
there's a lot of opportunity here, and I just, we don't get as much leads as we would if we were just networking in inbound leads, just from making
Right.
calls or whatever the case may be. So just growing that network is kind of my kind of short-term goals for the next few weeks. So
I love it. I think it's totally, you can totally achieve that. I mean, that's with networking, you've already kind of done that, in a sense, kind of propelled you to where you are now. And I mean, getting on the phones, you've closed deals in the past. So, I mean, it's just, again, making time for it,
hmm
and just kind of just setting yourself up. So I'll make sure to get on your ass
yeah,
to
please
get
do.
to get those deals.
Please
Uh,
do.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
What about you?
Um,
What about you in the next you can pull out your, journal too and kind of take a
my
look.
little journal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see.
maybe a little hard, but I think I kind of mentioned them along the way. Yeah, you can't read my chicken scratch because it's all like messed up. Yeah, I have chicken scratch writing. Um, but yeah, my three goals, I kept them just based off like priority with like hiring a VA. That's one thing. Um, because I have my 9 to 5, so it's like one thing I've kind of learned in like analyzing is like where am I the most productive or have the most time where I can make calls. So I found like the mornings is the best time. So I'm like, okay, I'm a consistently get up like even extra early. I think before I was waking up between like 5:30 and 6. I was
Mm,
like, okay, I'm gonna wake up like right at 5 because I've learned like even like a 30-minute difference is huge.
yeah.
It makes difference because like you have to do your own routine. I have animals, so I have to feed my dog. I
Yep.
have
Me too.
to walk my dog, and I want to make time to like journal even a little bit. So, but that stuff takes time. So I'm like, I need to get on the phones by like 5:50, between 5:50 and 6, so I at least have like an hour, 2 hours the most to be on the phones or just jump on the dialer. Because then if I get that over with now in the beginning, I kind of have the rest of the day to like work on the 9 to 5, and then like the end of the day can just be like task stuff.
Sure.
But that kind of leads to my second goal, which is lead generation. I'm
Mm,
like, if I want to close more deals, my goal is to close 5 deals while working a 9 to 5, which is totally achievable. But
totally.
I need consistent leads. I mean, that was one thing that Jeff talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my
Jeff
goal is
did.
to have 10 leads a week. And
Mm,
so that's like 40 leads a month. I'm like, I should be able to get at least a good amount of those under contract.
mm-hmm.
So I at least need 1 to 2 leads a day. But in order to do that, I need volume. So hiring the VA will help.
Yep.
I'm also doing SMS marketing. So that, but along with cold calling, like I should most definitely have that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then my third, as I mentioned, is like my credit score. But I
That's
have
cool.
other goals along, like like working on this podcast. Those are
Yeah.
just like secondary, because I know like we're just building this out. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe in like my next 12-week goal, it'll be focusing on my brands,
Sure.
focusing on this podcast, definitely a mentorship, um, for sure, because I want to take my business to the next level. And
Yeah. Me too.
I've just known if you invest in yourself, that's kind of the best thing you could do. And then hopefully, yeah, in the next, I don't know, probably the next 6 months, or for sure by the end of this year, I want to purchase a property, so that me and the wife can house hack,
I
because we
love
want
it.
to build out our portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
We can leverage our jobs, using our 401k for like
Mm-hmm.
money. I don't want to use any of my own like cash. Like we'll still save, but it's like it's so close. Um, getting a property, like getting a multifamily. But then it's
Mm-hmm.
like now we're deciding like, okay, do we want to do it in California or should we do it elsewhere? Because California, it's like, I love it out here, but
Right.
as a landlord or as a business owner, it's like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, we want to live here, but we don't want to like have our business here, if like that makes sense. So we're like,
Mm.
okay, maybe we should have rental properties. If we're
Elsewhere.
just
Right.
talking
Yeah.
smaller, if we're talking like a commercial or like, um, a huge multifamily, like commercial unit, maybe, I would for sure be down for that in Cali.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But just to start off with, I'm like, let's chill in these landlord friendly states,
Mm-hmm.
and see how that goes, and then use the proceeds from that, kind of the 4-3-2-1 concept that we've talked
Right.
about
Mm-hmm.
before, where it's like you start with a quad, triplex,
Mm-hmm.
duplex, and then use the money, the passive income from that to fund your actual primary residence, where we want
Exactly.
to live back in Cali, and so we can buy a bomb ass $1 million house and live
Mm-hmm.
in it, and we can live in there for whatever, and it's getting paid for by our
Your other
passive income.
properties. Yep.
So it's kind of right. So that's kind of where the trajectory we want to go with. So there's a lot, but you can see why, like, if you don't have the priority set, like you can go out of
Yeah.
loop. Like one day you might
Totally.
focus on that, the other, like, narrow it down to 3 goals or so, and then just focus on that for 12 weeks. And
Yeah.
then, after those 12 weeks, um, see where you're at, and then write down what your newer goals are. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So that's kind of, there's a lot more to that, of course,
Of
networking,
course.
investing,
Yeah.
going to conferences, but starting off with like those main things to like um, build the funds and stuff, profits in my
Yeah.
business.
And that's the whole thing of, getting into the multifamily was being able to have that kind of pay for the, like you said, the dream house. So, um,
Right. Yeah.
and
I was
house
like, because
hacking is
I
gonna
can't
the
live
way to go.
anywhere else in Cali. Right. exactly. It's totally people don't, I mean, people talk about it enough, but like everybody should be doing this. If you're not, like, it's, if I
Yeah,
were single, I would totally buy a house and rent out the rooms. If anything, like,
yeah,
I totally would have done that. So it's definitely an opportunity, uh for sure, especially if you have a 9 to 5 or have a
yeah,
W-2. Leverage your job, like, you should be able to qualify for a house.
yeah. Because
uh
I did talk to someone else too, and they had no idea that was an option. And just
that's
explaining that to
crazy.
them, it's just like, so there's a lot of people, and that's why I like this, opportunity to share like different ideas and things out there, just because people need to know the information, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
people just don't. And we think other people know, but the knowledge that we've gotten, because we just assume that they're doing the same thing, but they're not, right? They're just going through their life, but they wish they want, a house or, you know,
Or
uh,
they just do the traditional route
yeah,
where it's like, okay, let
traditional
me
route.
spend, put all my eggs in one basket and put all my money down to a single family home, which is totally fine if that's how you want to do it. But it makes it a little bit harder if, like, uh,
Absolutely.
building out a portfolio. You kind of want to leverage your properties um, in order to get to that. So I'm hoping with that house hacking trickling effect, I can, off the top, in like 3 years, I have like 5 properties under my belt.
That's awesome.
And then, but at the same time, I'm still running my wholesaling business, so I can still purchase properties, hopefully, like, creatively, like sub to um, a creative finance,
Hmm.
where I can acquire more properties while I'm like house hacking my way through. So there's so, that's why, like, I love real estate. It's so
Yeah,
diverse and like the opportunities that you can do.
right, right. That I do want to get a
Yeah.
sub two or a creative financing deal on a multifamily like Jeff did. That was freaking awesome. So
Right, right. It's just gotta find the right landlord that'd be down for it. So
that's it.
we'll get it. We'll get it for sure.
That's it.
Cool. So, like, we're approaching the hour. I think Priscilla, our girl Priscilla, I don't know if she's still on here, but she had posted a question. As entrepreneurs, we all go
Hmm.
through the highs and lows. So what do you guys do when negative thoughts do set in?
Um, well, I think for me, it's they happen. I mean, they happen on a daily, so it's you definitely have your highs and lows. But um, for me, it's going back to what the ultimate goal is, right? It's like or even the negative thoughts could be like, oh, I'm going to do something else instead of doing what that, like, let's say, get on the phones or something like that. So for me, it's going back to what what's the original thing I'm going to accomplish in the today, or what my ultimate goal is, right? And I think because you're always going to have those, but you have to, for me, it's a little bit different as an athlete, because you're always trying to improve yourself too, and
Right,
there's always going to be some kind of self-doubt. But if you just do it, and then knowing that you're going to learn from it, if you achieve it, great. If you didn't, then you learn from that, and then you try to do better, right? So
right.
for me, it's like, what's the negative thought? Is the negative thought fear, or is the negative thought, uh, self-confidence, right? Or is the negative
Mm,
thought procrastination, right? So there's different. I think you got to assess what that is, and then try to, move past that. Like Coach always says, you got to push through, right? So,
right,
and sometimes you can't. Like sometimes it's a situation where you just, you know, you're done for the day, right? And you can't do
right,
that,
right.
right? And that's okay. Who says that's not? You're like, you're not going to kill yourself over that day,
Over a
but
day.
yeah,
Right,
but you have another day to push forward and overcome. And that's the thing, is that tomorrow's a new day, and you can be 1% better than you were the day before. and you're already a
Absolutely.
step ahead, right? So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
I love that. Yeah, 1% better every day. Progress.
Right.
It's like, yeah, we tend to like look back and be like, oh, I didn't achieve my goal, but it's like, hey, but we progressed, right? And that's why tracking it is really important. I think the thought process or negative thoughts again go back to my scientific
Yeah, there you
presentation.
go.
The physiology, your amygdala literally it controls the risks and dangers. Like that's what triggers the amygdala to do its thing. And so an example of that is like a negative thought, maybe of like when you think of you're trying to think positively of like, yeah, I want to accomplish this and that, and your brain is literally telling you like, no,
Hmm.
don't, you're crazy. That's you're stepping out of your comfort zone. I feel uncomfortable. And that's where those negative thoughts come in. You literally have to develop your mindset to change that, where the prefrontal cortex comes in and is like it overrides those thoughts. So it's not going to happen overnight, like you said. It's a 1% thing, but like work on it, like acknowledge it as it comes, because I think that's really important. We let the negative thoughts take over.
Hmm.
Like acknowledge it, like, okay, I need to stop. Like, what am I thinking? Be nice. Let me be nice to Gladia first off. Like, let me be nice to myself. Um, and think like, okay, I either need a break or I need to shut it down for the day, which is totally fine. Or like if you can convince yourself like, no, no, get rid of that thought and
Hmm.
replace it with something positive. You're developing your mind to step outside of its comfort zones, and that's where we're training it to think differently. So now moving forward, anything you really feel like you can accomplish anything because you've trained your mind to do it. So um, I think that's between the both of us. I think those that should hopefully help, but it's still going to happen. I think even with a trained
Yeah.
brain, you're still going to think or have those negative thoughts, but it's again, maybe you'll be able to dissolve it much quicker
Yeah.
because you've developed your brain. But it's still going to happen. I mean, people get it all the time. I'm sure Chris runs into that all the time.
Yeah.
Um, Bill Gates, whatever. But they're so like ahead of it where they're like, whatever,
Hmm.
just move past it. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Cool.
All right.
Nice.
Yes, yes, Priscilla.
There you
Master
go.
your prefrontal cortex. I'm
I
telling you
love
guys,
it.
and I'll also post the book. Guys, get this book, the 12-week year. It's been life-changing. The 10x goals. That's also a great book as well from Grant Cardone, and we'll post it in the description after this. But Tim, it's been
Always.
another fire podcast talking
There you
about goals. I
go.
really hope you guys took a lot out of this and really feel like you guys are ready to take on 2022. Feel free to reach out to us. I believe our handle is on here. So at Real
Yep.
Estate Gladia for me, at
Yeah.
Mr. Tim REI on IG. Feel free to post any comments or questions afterwards, and we'll be happy to reply back as well. But
Yep.
let's be real. But hey, let's
Yeah. Yeah.
conquer 2022. Let's get
Exactly.
it.
We appreciate
And
y'all, and don't forget to
yeah,
hit that subscribe. Yep.
yeah. Subscribe reminders too. Hit those reminders so we can bug you guys and be like, hey, we're popping up next week. Because we love your support, and what people say helps with the algorithm, whatever it is. But we really appreciate your guys' support. And we'll
Yep.
see you guys next Wednesday at 8 a.m. PST, 10 a.m. Central, 11. It's so hard
Yep.
sometimes. I'm like 11 a.m. EST.
There you go.
Catch you guys later.
All right. See you guys.
Peace.